Hey YouTube, the next guide in this series, I guess. We're doing fortified temple. I think it's probably one of the spookier dungeons as a tank. Um, we'll go over what I do and what I want to do for future keys and all that stuff. So first pull, we are only pulling one elemental with a water speaker.
My pre-pot.
And
No, just one.
yeah, it's pretty simple. You just rotate 2 kicks, or I guess 3. You can also use stops on Tidal Burst. That's kind of what I prefer doing. I think it's kind of a wasted kick to use it on Tidal Burst. I know the groups that I played with in the past, they like it when I pull the mobs up here rather than keeping them down like around this part of the stairs. That's the first pull. As long as you get kicks and you dodge swirlies, you're good. And we have a Shadow Priest too, can mass spell the dots whenever we needed. This pull, we're pretty much doing the same thing. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I should be doing this soon. Or actually, no, yeah, maybe I pull it with the next pack. But we'll get into that in a second. It's the same thing. You want to drag these guys like around this corner so melee have an easier time LOSing. I was probably just thinking in my head like when I was gonna pull the next droplet. But yeah, okay. So here you only need 1 droplet, and you can just taunt the one that's closest to you. So this one right here, not that one. You can drag it into this pull. So I think ideally you'd have like some kind of melee DPS with like a bunch of stops. So you know, Rogue is good. I know Feral has Rake, and in this case, Tidal has Stormbolt. 30-second cooldown. I think Rake is 20. I don't know though. Don't quote me on that. But Rogue is good. So what I like to do is we'll do like Rogue and then Shadow Priest on one, and then me and whoever on the other, right? Now, ideally, what would happen is any any cast that goes on the tank gets let through. This will mean less group damage because it means you're kicking any cast that goes on like another person. So we're not really doing a good job of coordinating stops here. As a DK, I usually save my grips for tidal bursts. Well, in the case of Sanguine, it's a little tough because it means I wouldn't have grip for that. But these aren't too big of a problem to deal with because it's only 3 mobs. And for this boss, this is like, he's on Tyrannical, it's like the most boring boss in existence. At least as a like one that calls kicks, because you're pretty much doing that for like 3 to 4 minutes straight. Ideally, when you're calling kicks too, you'd be paying attention to who has I don't know what this is called. That ability. This one right here. So instead of calling Tidal's kick, because he has the debuff, I would be calling Stab's kick. Like that. So that's really the only thing to keep in mind here. Obviously, the Corrupted Vortex, you just bring that out. And yeah, I guess another thing, fun fact, you can AMS the wash away if you can't be bothered to move. If it's like right on top of me, then sure, why not? I'll AMS it. Is there anything else to note of this boss? Probably not. It's very straightforward. Obviously, when you're moving for the washaways, you don't stand in the water when it explodes. Yeah. So, Invis skip these guys. They're pretty much unplayable in like 99% of scenarios, at least like in higher levels. I know I've played that pack before with a warlock on a tyrannical key, and that was it. That was the only time I played them anything higher than a 20. So for this next pull, I don't remember if we pull everything here, but I usually like to have a melee kick on this first Shaw, a melee kick and a range kick on this, and then I get the next Shaw right there. So 3 kicks, or like 3 total kicks, so melee, range, melee, on the fish should be enough. Usually. It's not, sometimes, most of the times I usually have to get dispelled, but it's not a big deal. Another important thing is, like, one reason why I do assign, like, a rogue, for example, to the Shaws, because they can use their stops on the Haunting Gaze. So you'll see Stab uses Kidney Shot here. And since both of the Shaws have already used Haunting Gaze, I'm free to pull the next pack. Because ideally, well, I guess ideally, you would just pull everything. But it can get kind of spooky. The lesser Shaws do a ridiculous amount of damage on fortified. So for me, I chain pull it after the first set dies. And then it's pretty much the same kind of deal here. We have Sanguine this week. Another thing to note is that you can actually outrange this Vicious Peck. You can't outrange the Haunting Gaze because that'll fervent to your team. So that one you want to avoid outranging. And then another thing is, I mean, since I'm a tank, I can easily risk this, right? But you can actually dip in and out. If you do it right, you can avoid getting stacks. But you see here, I'm just going in and out, not getting vicious pecked. Then I guess I just face tank it here. It's also kind of spooky to pull that with these. Makes it, Sanguine just makes it worse. But okay, so it actually might be better to do with what I'm about to say. We didn't do here. This is something that kind of learned later. But what you can actually do is let this golden barrier go off. So we pull, and I think it's staggering blows first. Yeah, so ideally what you do is let this go off, and everyone uses their defensives or something of, external whatever maybe. And then it'll be on cooldown for a lot longer than that. So then you only really have to use like one set of stops instead of like using everything that you have, and then potentially risking it, right? Another thing to keep in mind is this is what I've heard. Bit of rage stops the little swirls on the ground. I don't even watching this doesn't even look like it's true. But yeah, the main thing you want to kick is a catnap. Bit of rage. It doesn't make too big a difference. At least you have if you have like some kind of defensive rolling, right? Like Vamper, whatever. Like it's not a big deal.
Well, we were under.
Also, something to keep in mind when you're running down the stairs, two things. One, you don't want to jump like too far over the railing if you do that, because you will pull the pandas. Another thing is that I've seen trinkets pull through the floor. I don't remember exactly what trinket it was. It was a rogue trinket, so maybe rogues out there will have some sort of idea on what that was. So try not to tank the mobs down here either. If anything, you can kind of just pull them off to the side just to avoid that risk. Because if you pull them, it's over. Like, see where they died here. Yeah, this boss is pretty straightforward. You don't really do anything as a tank. If anything, you kind of just maximize DPS. Like one person's gonna have the buff for a very long time. So yeah, the Shadow Priest has it for probably almost 40 stacks. Yeah, by this point, I sending AMZ because they're just taking a lot of passive damage. It actually tanks it the entire time too. Okay. So something to note here is a DK can grip through the wall. Fun fact, I guess. Usually just rotate your melee kicks. You can solo it as a DK. It does take a global though. So in this case, in this pull, you just rotate two melee kicks. There may be other pulls if you're pulling big, where you want to, or you could potentially solo it and have melee kicks on like the Shaws, for example. So the main thing is just burning this caster down, and then you also want to make sure you actually have aggro on these Shaws. I usually try to save Blood Boil for when they spawn. At least one charge. You don't have to hold it for very long. So the courtyard. There are a few different ways you can do this. On Tyrannical, you can hold Lust for one of these pulls. So I've seen. Actually, let me pull up WoW for a second. So let's go to Temple. I've seen people do this with Bloodlust. You can also do this with Bloodlust if you really want. As long as you're pulling big and you do this area in like two pulls, that's the main thing that you want to do. On Fortified though, usually I just do what I'm about to do now and I pull the Infestor in with these guys. This is pretty spooky to do. It's best to health pot just to make sure you're topped off. And also, you're probably going to have to pop, like, most of your CDs. I mean, oh, I started lagging here. The main thing is, like, I'm popping Rune Weapon, Vamp, and then I also have Lichborn rolling here. Ideally, I would pop a Rune Weapon a little earlier as I'm walking in, just to potentially mitigate some more damage. And then also, ideally, I'd probably hold Vamp for maybe a couple globals as I'm gathering runic power. So I could have played this better. I did not proc. That's the important thing. And also another thing that would be good to do is coordinating AoE stops or really just any stops on the Dark Claws, especially here where I'm kind of dry. I know that there's going to be a Dark Claw soon. I do call for Bark here. I get it just in time for that Dark Claw. Now I have Vamp back up. Now, one thing that I will say, since I'm running Umbilicus, I actually gain a lot of value out of it in this dungeon because of the amount of little Shaws that spawn. So, just something to note there. The healer is kind of low on mana. I'm letting him drink for a sec. And then here I'm just assigning kicks. I believe I'm soloing the Mistweaver, and then I'm having someone on the Haunting Shaw. Now, I think could probably chain now. Because another thing to keep in mind is we have 3 melee kicks. If I'm soloing the Mistweaver, then it'll be pretty easy to get another kick. Actually, there isn't even another kick on one of them here. So you can chain pull this a lot quicker. So here's the patrol. And what I'm kind of thinking here is we get some damage on the little Shaws. And then afterwards, I can chain pull. Just so that they're desynced enough to where we have time to recover.
Can you vamp this?
5 seconds.
Make sure you use something.
You see, I have kind of low on cooldowns here. I have Rune Tap rolling. I'm also standing in my AMZ, which means less damage taken from the Haunting Gaze. So it was meant for little Shaws, but I also used it to my advantage there.
Serpents, no?
But yeah, once those little Shaws die, you can pretty much chain pull to the next pack. And the Minions of Doubt do not fervent.
As long as you're trying to
Specifically, okay, I should be a bit more specific. They don't fervent based on range. They will fervent based on Z-axis. So you see these stairs right here? That's enough for them to fervent if you are up here and they are down below. It's a bit silly, but that's just how it is, I guess. Spaghetti coating and all.
Alright, can you AMS? I don't have.
That's fine. I'm fine.
So this boss, it is unfortified, but it's gonna be the same thing as if it were tyrannical. It's mainly just rotating your defensives. The the first set of debuffs really aren't a big deal. So I'll go over second phase, if anything. That's usually the spooky one. Okay, so should be phasing here in a second. So right here, I'm using Lichborn and Vamp. Probably didn't have to use Vamp. I probably could have just used like Rune Tap or something. And then that way I can save Vamp with Umbilicus for this next one. Because now I just don't have anything. So I'm using AMZ and Rune Tap. So I could have done that better. Just me being careless. So what I'll do here is I'll Vamp early. And then I'll try and get a good Umbilicus shield out of it. So you see here, actually let me see if I can go back like a second. Or 10. See, I'm waiting and waiting. And I press my cancel aura. Now I have the Umbilicus shield going. And it's pretty much plenty in this case. This next one I'm thinking Tombstone, just because I want to use it for damage. There. We're good. This next one is probably going to be AMS. And then the one after, actually there isn't going to be one after, but if there was, I would Vamp. Vamp early and use Umbilicus. Something to note is that you can AMS every third one. So that's kind of where Vamp comes in. That's where like Tombstone comes in. AMZ you can use once. Lichborn you can use once. And then if you need to, you can also Rune Tap. But rotating EMS and Vamp should generally be enough. Like, oh, and you also have IBF too. So as long as you're prioritizing the shorter cooldowns, that being EMS and Vamp, you should have enough to live for a while. So for this poll, since it's fortified, we're kind of taking it easy. We're focusing down the Mistweaver and CCing the other one. This pack is actually kind of spooky. You have 3 tank busters, and you'll see I procced there. I got 2 synced up. I'm not topped off, and I just die. Use Bark a little early. Ideally, you'd have Bark for here. This is where I end up proccing, and I only just got Vamp off CD. So just make sure your healer is waiting for your call, and also, you know, practice being aware of when you need an external. That's also very important. Yeah, the Mistweaver died a while ago. All my focus right now is like on not dying and then also Sanguine. So that's kind of a mistake on my part. We're kind of chilling on time, so not the end of the world. So yeah, we spend a bit of time trying to kill this Mistweaver. Ideally, we would go in a bit sooner. So this pull right here is the case of me soloing the Mistweaver, and then I assign the 2 melee kicks to the other guys with range kick as a backup. And then I try to use like AoE stops for tidal bursts. That's just the most efficient you can be. And then saving kicks for the Hydra Lances. That one's going. That Hydra Lance went on me. So again, if they go onto the tank, it's really not a big deal. And then Tidal also has a spell reflect, so if it goes on him, you know, every 25 seconds you can use that to your advantage as well. Saving a kick plus doing more damage. And then this is probably the scariest pull in the entire season. Reason being that even if you do kite, you're gonna have issues with the little Shaws. So it's a bit of a lose-lose. So it's
Want me to root anything?
pain in the ass.
Yeah, this will be less.
So we're waiting here because I want Rune Weapon on CD. Or I want Rune Weapon available. And then immediately I'm popping everything. I shouldn't have popped IBF, but actually maybe I should have because I almost got globaled. Let's see what happened there. So I popped IBF as well. 3 fucking Dark Claws cast at the same time. I interrupted the Haunting Gaze that would have gone off, and that would have killed me. Or actually, maybe that was a kick. I don't even remember now.
Okay.
But this is why this pull is hell for tanks. Yeah. So I would have got tank busted 4 times in one global. And I lived this purely because I made the decision to IBF. So triple Dark Claw with every single defensive in the game. I don't minus Rune Tap. We had Lichborn, Vamp, and IBF. Insane amounts of damage reduction. No, I actually Rune Tap after because I'm an idiot. So ideally, what would happen is you would rotate AoE stops. They're a fast cast, right? But it is something that really needs to be done. Like in this case, we could have saved Incap Roar and for that sync specifically. And then this is actually the situation you want to be in right here. When they cast back to back like this, like I'm kind of, well, I'm half runic power, right? I have 67 here. But this is not bad. I AMS the first one, which is really good for runic power. I take another, but that's fine. And I take another, that's also fine because I can just heal it back up and they're not casting for another several seconds. So we got Dark Claw there. I have Umbilicus running now, which should tank another Dark Claw. They cast. And then ideally, I think I use Potion late here specifically for the Exploding Shaws. So so this is another Dark Claw. I'm dead here.
Run back to me.
We had AoE stops, but we were not coordinated. So this was I had AMZ rolling, which means less magic damage. I'm also dodging the swirls that are in my AMZ. What I could have done was actually use Umbilicus early, but I was not thinking about that. I died through Vamp and AMZ because Double Dark Claw is too strong.
Like a minute to do this.
Mary, stop running. I'm gonna meld my.
Yeah, this poll is a bit of a shit show.
Keep kiting the Dark Claw. That's a pop first.
Actually, I don't know if there's another run of me actually doing this poll.
I'll mass the
Giving damage for ads or.
title will destroy them each time.
So, as a tank, this boss doesn't really
I'll have a little bit, yeah.
do anything.
Do you have it for every poll since you're doing Dark Ascension?
No, I don't.
The idea is that you want to have
I thought my axe
some kind of CDs for intermission.
I have damage like every S.
So like pretty much everyone here is gonna have damage.
Excellent view, Addy.
See, so we have Mass Dispel, which means a lot less damage needing to be healed. So I actually held my cooldowns for a solid minute. Kinda yikes, but we were chill on time. So I figured we might as well get it out safely and have something for the ads.
What damage do we have for next set of ads?
So something that you want to do as well is this also kind of limits what classes you can bring to some extent, but classes like druids and shamans are, I mean, they're already good, so it kind of doesn't matter nearly as much. But the important thing is for these ads, you want to be using 1 minute stops and using pretty much anything to make them stop moving. Like you'll see I use blinding sleep, even if it's just for like half a second, it's still going to help with the incoming damage. I'm using grip. I use D&D slow, and you have classes like rogue that can use evasion. That helps. Druid can use Typhoon, or sorry, not Typhoon, Vortex. And AoE stuns they work really, really well for this. Ring of Peace also works. Really just anything to prevent, especially range players, from taking damage. And that's Temple. Once again, the solution is to just stop all the tank busters. You just rotate, rotate single stops, rotate AoE stops. We didn't have much here in particular, but yeah, that's it.